You're listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me be part of your day. I am unsupervised this evening. Myra is on a super secret mission, so to speak. She's going to surprise our granddaughter, and I understand that was a complete success. Apparently, she is moving up from elementary school to middle school, and we're quite proud of that. Quite proud of all of our granddaughters. They are, that's a grandparent's job, right? You've got to be proud of your grandkids because of their achievements. They do things, and you look at them and go, man, that is the reward I get for allowing my own children to survive their teenage years. I have said that before, and that is just kind of the way it seems to be. Before I get into our topic of deception, there's a couple of things I need to address. If you are still one of my followers on Facebook and the people who follow Give God 90, there's just about 4,000 of you. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. That was done completely organically with zero advertising. It was all done because you are the ones who hit the notification buttons, you hit the share buttons, you left comments, you interacted and did some really great things. You left me a lot of messages on Messenger and all of those good things. But I was basically forced to delete the Give God 90 page on Facebook. Apparently, I violated their rules by posting my own thing. When I say that, it was a copyright infringement, and it was my copyright. I'm not sure how that's a violation, but if you're a regular listener, you've been here for a while, you know that we used to do the Facebook Lives, and Facebook kind of got on us a couple years ago about that, so we stopped doing it and just went strictly to the podcast. And many, 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 many of you have followed that, and we appreciate it. But quite honestly, it seems like Facebook is encouraging people to be divisive. It encourages conflict rather than unity, and I'm done with them. Saturday, I will take down my personal page and walk away from it and call it good. And I want to encourage each and every one of you to find us on one of the other social media platforms, especially MeWe or the Torah Network platforms. MeWe is great because there's no ads, and they care about your privacy. In fact, one of the biggest complaints about MeWe is they don't show anything that you don't want to see. You get to pick and choose the people, the groups, the pages that you interact with, and that's what you see. Torah Network does sort of allow advertising, kind of. There's no suggestions there, but they encourage their own people to sponsor what they do. So there's folks on there who provide different products, different services. Everything that I've seen on there is biblical. They also have what they call TorahTube. It's kind of like YouTube, but it's more biblically related content. There's some traditional things out there as well, but and a little bit of information, but you're going to have that. So you just kind of pick through what you want. It's tough to walk away from 4,000 followers, and I am under no deception. Out of those, I am sure some of them are bots. So I'll say at least half of that are real people, if not more. But even that is a lot of followers to walk away from. But Facebook being Facebook, Meta being Meta, I know when to say enough is enough and enough's enough. And I am going to encourage anyone out there who still has a Facebook account. You've seen less and less and less and less of me on Facebook over the last year. There's a reason for that. And I'll encourage anyone out there, if you really like social media, find a different platform. Doesn't matter. Of course, we're on Twitter, YouTube, and all those good things. You can find us there. The podcast, if you choose to listen through a YouTube channel, they're on there. But we're all over the place. So find us, follow us, hit the notifications, help other people follow us just like you did before. We really, really do appreciate that. If you want to contact me, because once you give up Facebook, you give up Messenger, right? But there's the comments on the podcast. They're always open. You can leave a comment no matter when you listen. And it's another thing I like about the podcast platform is you get to listen when it's convenient for you. I see the statistics that come out every week. I look at them. I know pretty much where you are. Not exactly. I don't know your address, right? But they tell me what country you're in. If you're in the United States, I know what state you're in, that kind of thing. But I know how many of you listen, and I know how many listen live and how many listen at other times. And there's a lot of you out there that don't have a chance to listen live, and that's fine. But you listen, and that's what's important, because if you're listening to this, you're searching for something that you're not getting in your regular places of worship, if you're even attending them anymore. So, don't be afraid to contact me. You can contact me through the website. Our email's on there. Other things are available. There's just a lot of ways out there if you want to send me a message. You can find me. You can get to me. And by the way, if the Swiss Guard's listening and you're tracking, go ahead and come knock on the door. I don't care. I'm here. The next thing I want to talk about is I said something a week or two ago, and it concerned wearing clothing of mixed material. And I mentioned a very, very non-scientific science experiment that you can try at home. And I suggested you just choose some clothes that you already own that are made from non-mixed fabric. 100% cotton, 100% linen, 100% wool, 100% something. And wear that for a week and see if you notice a difference in the way you feel physically and emotionally. As long as you didn't wear the poly cotton or the whatever it is, the spandex poly bamboo stuff, just wear 100% and see if it makes a difference. That experiment was for you to determine. You choose, you see, find out for yourself. Do your own research in a very easy way to do it, right? And at least one of you did and sent me a message, and it began this way. I thought you were crazy. Now, when I get a message like that, it's like, okay, maybe I am. I don't, I might not. What was the old country song? I've always been crazy, but it's kept me from going insane. This particular person picked out some clothes that were not blended fabric, and after only a few days, apparently experienced fewer allergy symptoms. Now, they explained that their allergies were mild, okay, so that it wasn't like a full-blown allergy attack, okay? But they experienced fewer allergy symptoms and less inflammation. Don't know how old this person is. You're probably listening, and I'm not, I care about your privacy too, so I'm not going to give out any information. Now, I can't promise that everybody's going to experience that. And everybody's experience will be a little different. But even having one person come back and take the time to say, I thought you were crazy, but this worked for me. It helps us understand the reason behind Deuteronomy 22 and Leviticus 19. Don't mix wool and linen together. You see, the instructions we have from our Creator, they're for our benefit. Whether we like them or not, whether we understand them or not. This isn't rocket science. It's biblical. All you have to do is say, well, I really don't know why we shouldn't wear poly cotton. I don't know why I shouldn't put spandex. There's spandex yoga pants that Myra's not here, so I can't get in trouble for this. I'll hear about it later. Those spandex yoga pants that a lot of people should say no to, right? They're not healthy for you in a lot of ways. Truly, in many, many ways. All right. But the thing is, just because you don't understand one of the instructions doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your best to attempt to follow it. Right? There's a lot of people who, on a open highway with one car, where you're the only car and driver on the road, and you want to drive 5 miles an hour under the speed limit. I don't understand that either. If I was on a straight, dry road, I was the only car there, and the speed limit was 75, guess how fast I'm going? That's exactly right. Just because you don't understand something doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do it. And the mixed fabric is one of those things that for a long time we didn't understand. And now we have more knowledge. And as I like to say, science is catching up to the Creator. Now we have reasons why those things were put in place almost now 4,000 years ago. So, with that out of the way, now I can move on to deception. There's a couple of words that are translated from the Hebrew for deceived. And these words in their original language actually carry a couple of different meanings. Now, when we think about deceived, it takes in a lot in English. Hebrew's a lot more specific. When you get to the New Testament, the Greek kind of lumps it all together, sort of like English does, and it gets a little sloppy. It gets a little sloppy. If you look at if you're keeping score, Strong's number Hebrew 2048 is used in Genesis 31:7, and it describes Laban deceiving Jacob. And the word halal, that's not right. Hatal. Wonder why that copied wrong. Oh well. Means to deceive or to mock. And it's understood to describe a spirit that is linked or bound to evil as the one doing the deceiving. Now, when you get to like Leviticus 6:2, there's a different word. It's still translated in many English translations as deceived, but it's Strong's Hebrew number 6231, ayak, which is to wrong or to oppress someone. It's more understood to be something that's kept in the dark, being compressed, being reduced. And the implication here is that you're withholding information from someone. You're not trying to mock them. It's not coming from a spirit of evil. You're just withholding information. You're preventing someone from knowing the entire truth. Well, it's still deception, but it has a different context. And there's some subtle differences. One comes from a source of evil. The other can be used to protect you in certain circumstances. Even though it does have some negative connotations, it could possibly be used for your protection. So, you have to go back to the original language and figure out the subtle differences in these words if you really want to understand, what's being transmitted. What's the lesson that we're supposed to learn from this? You can't guess at it. There's no need to guess at it. We have all of the information necessary. You simply have to go look it up. Kind of like pulling 100% fabric out of your closet and trying to wear that for, a week or two and see if it makes a difference. Believers are warned often about the danger of being deceived, both from an aspect of evil and even, hey, is somebody holding information back that I need to know? Important, critical, need-to-know information. When I was putting these notes down, I was thinking, one of the reasons we hear about so many so-called conspiracy theories in the world today is because there's a lot of people in our governments around the world who are holding back important information. And when that information actually is revealed, when it comes to light, often done by the people who actually take their time, do the real research, do their investigations, a lot of times these so-called conspiracy theories are either proven valid or invalid. But you have to be able to wade through all of the garbage and all of the contaminated flood water before you can reach that island of truth. I'll give you, for instance, 3 years ago when COVID started, where did it come from? Oh, it was transmitted from this animal to that animal, and then somebody ate that animal. Now, 3 years later, we know better. We know that it was a man-made source that either escaped or was released from a laboratory. We know that there were people in the world who were developing these things. We also know that a lot of people attempted to cover it up, and there were a bunch of other people that made a lot of money from it. I saw something earlier today that, if you remember a couple of years ago when the vaccinations first came out, it was, if you get the vaccination, you can't get it. Then all of a sudden, if you get the vaccination, it won't be as bad. Now we know if you get the vaccination, you stand a better chance of getting it. Was information being withheld because they didn't know, they didn't understand, or was it being held because it was coming from a source of evil? It may take some time for us to understand that completely. I think I know. I lean towards, it's a source of evil. Anytime you're going to develop something that, with the sole purpose of harming others, it comes from evil. Global warming is another. It's another example when folks take something way too far. Even the founder of Greenpeace is now speaking out against what the governments are trying to do to reduce some of these greenhouse gases. He says, wait, you can't do that. You don't understand how the world works if you do that. And we need to also remember that deception can come in many ways. Now, we often think that the most popular way, is, it may begin, I should say, the most popular way may begin with someone who's bound to an unholy spirit. And then the second most popular way is when someone attempts to withhold information from us. And like I said, sometimes withholding information may be for our benefit. Well, think about, if you're having a surprise party for somebody, whatever it may be, maybe they're retiring and you want to honor them. If you withhold all the information, it kind of is because you want to see the look on their face when they're surprised. You want to see the look on their face as they realize that other people around them are honoring them for their achievement. But a doctor, on the other hand, who withholds critical medical information that will cause you harm, that's not beneficial for you. Not at all. It may be beneficial for the doctor's bank account, but certainly not the patient, if you know what I'm saying. And we need to stop and consider, which is more dangerous for a believer? Someone who attempts to deceive someone else, or someone being so prideful and so arrogant that they deceive themselves? We all probably know somebody who has convinced themselves that they have such a strong relationship with the Creator, they think they can do anything and still be considered righteous. I had a pastor years ago say, and I'm going to share this. He came right out and said, all I have to do is tell my church the Lord said to me, and the argument's over. Well, if you have that good of a relationship that, you're on this one-on-one conversation, well, more power to you, but you better be saying exactly what the Almighty said to you. And I really don't think he was. Then there's the other type. And we all know this kind of person too. the holier than thou type. They've deceived themselves into believing that they can do no wrong and nobody else can do anything right. You need to worship their God their way or you're going to hell in a handbasket. It's that simple. Oh, you've got to go to their place of worship or you're not getting into heaven. Oh, you've got to follow my church doctrine or you just don't love God. You see, what they're actually saying is you need to live your life the way they think you should be living your life instead of living your life the way the Creator designed you to live your life. There's a big difference there, way too often. Now, those are extreme examples, right? But I imagine if you think about it, just about everybody knows someone like this. I get messages that tell me, I don't tell people that they need Jesus. Well, no, I don't. My answer for that is simply, well, it's gotten to be a pretty standard answer. Well, you have him, but you're refusing to do the things that you should be doing. Why should I tell somebody else that they need to do what you're doing when you're not following the instructions from your teacher? You know, Peter tells us that Yeshua, Jesus, is our example that we should follow. Well, that's because Yeshua lived the way he was designed to live, right? When he was faced with evil, excuse me, or the temptation of Christ, as a lot of Bibles want to title that section. You know, he was in the desert. The devil came to him. What did he do? What did he do? He said, no, it is written, and then he did what was written. You see, if you're following Yeshua, Jesus, as a teacher, and he's trying to show you and teach you how to live the way you're designed, when you have the test and you're not doing what he did, you failed. You failed. Now, when Yeshua said, it is written, who wrote it? Moses wrote it. Yeshua tells the people in Matthew 23, don't listen to the Pharisees, who are the pastors of the time. Don't worry about what they say. Just do what is written. You see, he didn't let anybody deceive him because he chose to use the sacred word of the Creator as the standard by which everything must be measured, not the other way around. He didn't say, well, you know, John, you've got a point there. God did say don't eat, but it's what comes out of someone's mouth that defiles them, not what goes in it. He never said that. Not in that context. He said you have to do what is written if you want, well, I should say, if you choose to live the way your Creator designed you to live. You see, the biggest problem believers face today is pride. It's that simple. You know, a lot of people say, oh, no, I want to be humble. Well, then be humble. You've heard me say this before. Mark Twain, you know, is really famous for saying some things. And one of the things he said is, it's easier to fool a man than it is to convince him he's already been fooled. Because pride gets in the way. Believers become prideful when we ask them to test the way they practice their faith. Why is that? Why is that? I'm not asking you to question your faith. I'm simply saying, are you practicing your faith properly? Are you applying it properly to your life? Now, why would you be so proud? You go, well, of course I'm doing everything right. Naturally, I do everything right. I do this and I do that and I do this and I do that. Well, where's that in the Bible? You know, and you've heard me talk about church doctrines often. If you've read my books, you know I write about the difference between the traditions and the doctrines of the church and how they conflict often with what's in the Bible. Somebody asked Pat Robertson about Christmas, and his answer was straightforward. He said, of course it's completely pagan. And then he chuckles and goes on and says, in an attempt to justify what he just said, but we've Christianized it. That's pride. That's arrogance. You see, mankind cannot take something that our Creator has said is not holy and then attempt to make it holy. It just doesn't work like that. Here's something else I want you to think about before I end. In Genesis 6:5, God saw the wickedness of man, and it was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Now, we often think about that verse in the terms of, oh, people must have really been bad. They were murdering each other. They were raping. They were pillaging. They were doing all kinds of bad things. That's how we think about it, right? Well, 1 John 3:4 gives us the biblical definition of sin. Sin is a violation of the law. Deuteronomy 12 begins this way. These are the statutes and ordinances you must be careful to follow all the days you live in the land the Lord your God, the God of your fathers, has given you to possess. And again, that you there is both singular and plural. Destroy completely all the places where the nations you are dispossessing have served their gods, atop the high mountains, on the hills, under every green tree, under every green tree. Tear down their altars and smash their sacred pillars, burn up their Asherah poles, cut down the idols of their gods, plural. Wipe their names out from every place. You shall not worship the Lord your God in this way. Actually, it should be their way. Now, what if the people who are described in Genesis 6:5, who were doing evil continually, were worshiping idols and doing the traditions that the Creator hated? Did you ever think about that? Maybe they were doing things, not so much the murdering, pillaging, raping, and tearing things down, but maybe they were bowing down to idols. Maybe they were worshiping false gods. Maybe they were following their own traditions that were more comfortable for them because everybody was doing it. What's changed between then and now? When I was a little kid, I remember Billy Graham. He was on television. He points at the camera, and he's got that old finger, just pointing it at the camera, and he's saying, "Your sin will find you out." Well, you can be sure you can try to hide your sin from people, but the Almighty will see it. And if the Almighty sees it, you can be reasonably certain that somebody is going to see it as well. Have you really deceived yourself into thinking you're better? Have you really deceived yourself, tricked yourself into believing that your traditions and doctrines are okay because I'm doing it in the name of my God? And then you don't even use his name. You don't even know his name. Have you fooled yourself into thinking, well, if I do this for God, he's going to bless me. And then you do something he absolutely despises. Maybe you've even, and I'm going to get some blowback from this, I know. Maybe you've even fooled yourself into believing that, when Grandma held me on her lap, whatever she taught me must be true. Do you have so much pride that you refuse to challenge the way you practice your faith? Do you refuse to give up your traditions? Do you refuse to give up the doctrines that might conflict with Scripture? Do you refuse to even look at them, to study them, to figure out where they came from, to find out why you're doing them? Now, I want to believe if you're listening to me anyway, you probably have at least some interest in knowing your Creator. Well, if you're willing to humble yourself and ask if you're living the way he designed you to live, or if you're living the way you want to live, if you're willing to ask that, well, you're on your way to seeking his face. You're on your way to hearing his voice. You're on your way to becoming the person he designed you to become. And if you need some help with that, try GiveGod90.com. Start making those small changes, little things that you can do every day to turn your life around. Because your sin will find you out. But you can choose to repent. You can choose life over death and light over darkness. You can choose not to be deceived if you're willing to hold the sacred word of the Creator as the standard that you measure everything else against. You see, a lot of people, they want to hold their traditions up and then measure the Bible up to that. And if it doesn't agree, well, the Bible must be wrong. Well, you've got it backwards. And I'll be the first one to tell you, you got it backwards, because I've learned that from personal experience. You've got to use the Bible as your standard by which you measure everything else. It's your rule. And if your traditions and your doctrines don't match that rule, you need to change. Don't let somebody don't let somebody withhold information from you. Don't let somebody impose evil on you. Don't allow the lies that we have inherited from our fathers guide your life. Instead, allow the Creator to guide your life. You see, it's really, really hard to deceive someone when they're using the Bible as the standard that they hold everything else up to. It's really hard to deceive somebody when they're using the sacred word of the Creator to measure what you say or what somebody else says. It's really hard to deceive somebody when they're willing to say, does this agree or conflict with the sacred word of my Creator? It's really hard to be deceived when you're willing to say, it is written, and then do what is written. Don't be deceived. And until Monday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.